Welcome to the NeuroSpice and Life podcast. I'm Freya, an alexithymic counsellor.
And I'm Hanna, a sexologist and sensologist.
And today we're looking at the label rigid and the double standards that it apply to when it's used.
Firstly, I just want to say as a sexologist, I really think the word rigid is hilarious.
It makes me giggle now too.
And hopefully other people. It's funny though, because rigid, smuttiness aside, on the surface, it means that there's a difficulty in adapting to change, which I think is something we can all relate to.
Mm-hmm.
But labels like rigid or rigidity, inflexibility, stubborn.
Pig-headed.
Yeah, it's a good one. Love pig-headed.
Yeah. Steamroller.
Yeah. It's just like, difficult, which comes back to the label difficult.
Yeah.
And it's when it's socially assigned. You know, when somebody calls you rigid, it doesn't just mean, oh, well, you don't like change. The insinuation behind it is that you're being a roadblock, you're not being easy. Why can't you just conform?
Yeah. And it's like it's seen as very much a deficit. And I find that so fascinating as well because, you know, when you look at the criteria for autism that exists within the DSM-5, and that's a whole other conversation for a different day, but like one of the criteria in there is about rigid, I think it's rigid thought patterns and you know, inflexibility, you know, with routines and those type of things. And automatically, because of how that whole system works out, is it seen as this is something that's bad, this is something that's a deficit, this is something that's to be fixed. When I'm like, but everyone's rigid at different times. And it's not a bad thing.
No, it's not. Like from a neurodiverse perspective, I think, and in my experience, and I think in yours as well, is that when I've heard this label being used, it's when we identify that we prefer routine.
Yes.
We ask for consistency.
Yes.
Or heaven forbid, clarity.
Yeah. Please explain to me the thing that doesn't make sense. Stop being rigid. Like just do the thing.
Yeah, because we challenge logical processes.
Yeah, and we question to understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
We struggle with sudden change or ambiguity.
Yeah.
Which usually stems from a system that says one thing but then does another.
Yes, or a system that's very hard to learn and is cognitively very, very heavy. So when you change it, it's not just changing this one step in the process, it's actually changing my ability to be able to execute the task because the computer is full.
Computer says no.
Computer says no. The computer's not just saying no, computer's saying, oh God, help me, please help me. I can't deal with one more thing being different today.
I'm bloody well drowning if you add one more thing to my load.
Where's the button? You've changed the color of the button and now it no longer exists. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the button like in an airplane, you know, with the eject button.
Yeah, exactly. Let me out. But yeah, all of that sort of stuff. So it's often, if we are being rigid or we are being inflexible, there's a reason behind it. But more often than not, like the rigid label comes from us actually failing to follow a process that don't make sense.
Oh, but that is the reason that I've come to understand. It's a label that's given as a defense to this is how it's always been done.
Yes.
Resistance is useless.
Yes.
Especially resistance to process improvements.
Yes.
And there seems to be this ongoing sort of prioritization of tradition over logic.
Yes.
Plus the expectation of social norms to be followed unquestioningly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've
had some very fascinating discussions over the years, and it has always comes down to don't question me.
Don't question me. But yeah, social norms, social rules, the way things have always been done. And again, a lot of those type of things, traditions were invented to maintain a power imbalance that did exist. And I know a lot of us have got a big, big fairness driver as well as part of us. It's a very strong value that a lot of us hold as well as creativity. So when you see things that don't make sense and you can see a better solution, and that's one of the amazing strengths that exists within our brain, or you see something that's, you know, unilaterally unfair, it's like, yes, I'm going to question it. Sorry, not sorry.
I mean, defiant is such an interesting term. And when you were talking about the DSM-5 before and rigid as a pathologization, essentially, when we're labeled as defiant, rigid, inflexible, these are all categorized essentially as deficits.
Yeah.
And I say that word with such disdain because if I could punch a word in this context, it would definitely be deficit.
Yeah.
Because it's seen to be a deficit of a desired trait of following along with the crowd. Don't cause waves.
Yeah.
Don't be seen to be the tall poppy. Don't put your hand up.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my own experience, what I found completely strange and very puzzling, and I certainly know I'm not alone here, is that when we see opportunities to improve systems, particularly systems that other people bitch about all the time, there's annoyance, there's stress, it bottlenecks, you know, there's I can't get anything done, this is really inefficient. And we come in and we go, oh, hey, have you considered doing X, Y, Z? And then there's this almost instant pushback or a refusal to even consider changing a system that is clearly broken.
Yep.
Because for some reason, I don't know if it's the effort of making it better is seen as too much, or whether seen to be not complying with the broken system is a bad thing.
Yeah. And look, sometimes there are going to be real like roadblocks, like real things that are like make it financially not viable or whatever reason. There's going to be something that makes it not viable for a reason. However, that's usually like the 1%. More often than not, things can be changed if there's an appetite to do so. But there's almost like the comfort that comes from a thing being bad and being predictably bad, as opposed to it actually being better or different. Yeah. Or it not being their idea.
What you're saying is there's a resistance to change from people who want to do things the correct way, the way that it's always been done. And so they're rigid in their stance that any improvements or any change is scary.
Yeah. And any changes is also well failure to follow the process is you being not rigid as opposed to actually the thing not making sense.
The double standard has entered the chat.
It is real. It is real. And it is wild to me.
I mean, I know we've talked about math and math problems previously. It's this whole my way or the right way.
Yeah.
And I know that you had issues with this, particularly in high school.
Yeah. In lots of school and in lots of different areas, is that my brain would come up with a different way of doing things. Like I'd tune and I would know what the answer is. I'm saying 6'7", like 67, 6'7". And I wish I wouldn't, but that's just 69. What comes to me having a young child. Yeah. It's like it's here, it's in the chat. I'm sorry. But it's I would know the answer intuitively would be that whatever the number is. Or, you know, even like a legal principle or a legal argument or those type of things, or an essay arguing a position. And it's like, it's not that your points were wrong. It's not that the answer was wrong. It's just that you didn't do it the right way. You didn't follow the method or the process.
The correct way.
The correct way.
Which is the known followed majority way.
Yeah.
Or what's in the textbook. Shut up and don't question the textbook.
Exactly. And it's just like, but you want me to slow my brain down to write out all of this irrelevant information to get to the same outcome. Why? Yeah. And it's just like the answer is we need to see your thinking to know that you understand it. And I'm like, isn't the fact that I've got 100% of the answers correct? I'm either really lucky or I understand it.
Yeah.
Like
I just understand it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like this process that you're making me do is slowing me down. It's deeply inefficient. I could have done 10 hours worth of work in this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I've heard with friends when they go into new environments and they're neurodiverse, one of the first things they want to do is prove themselves. They want to prove that they're worthy, that their imposter syndrome is, worthless, and that they're in the right place.
They're a real growing up human adult.
Make it stop. Yeah. But when they've really kind of kicked into overdrive, when they've got their dopamine high and they're in hyperfixation mode, and they've had actually like quite a few people come up to them over time and be like, look, you need to stop working as hard because you're making us all look bad.
Yeah.
And so it's really like, it is very, very strange. It's the perception, what's perceived, and also the inferred insult almost to some people that you're not doing it the way that I was shown, the way that I believe is correct, and therefore, you know, I must be the wrong one. And then this bizarre pushback, and it reminds me of like when I was growing up, and you know, the person who shall not be named, in their household, I had like a list of 12 rules. And the list actually kept growing the older I got, of things I would have to follow and things I would have to do before I even had a shot of watching morning cartoons.
Yeah.
And one of the things I had to do was make my bed. Yeah. Now, the way I had been shown was by a different person was hospital corners.
Yeah.
It made sense. It made everything look nice and neat and everything. But every time I made hospital corners, I was forced to undo what I did and make it their, you know, make the bed their way.
Yeah.
Because not because the way I did it was fundamentally incorrect.
Yeah.
But because it wasn't this particular one way that I was shown, and I had to do it their way, because it was about how well could I conform.
Yeah. Yeah.
How well could I swallow my pride, become passive, and comply?
Yeah. And again, coming back to that power imbalance, but also as well, like as a parent, I'm like, they made the bed, like, just don't question that. Like, that's amazing. That's phenomenal. They've made a bed, like, woohoo. Like, they've done the outcome. How they've chosen to get there is entirely their business, and happy days, you know. Yeah. It's not harming anyone. It's not hurting anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. And from even like a broader societal context as well, when we look at things like even you know, married people, for example, there's a tradition that one person, which, let's face it, often the female person or the person identifying as female is often expected to change their name in order to conform to this standard.
Yes.
And
their title as well, going from a miss to a Mrs.
Mrs. Yeah.
You know, I'm a Ms for the record, people. MS, who I'm married to, is no one's business if I'm married.
Always
my
and forever.
Status is not your concern. You're a Ms as well, aren't you?
I'm a Ms as well, yeah.
Yeah.
And because men don't have to change to become a Mr. So it's always blown my mind. And I remember I was dating somebody ages ago who was in the armed forces. So I don't know what I was expecting. And I remember like he was having some chats with me about wanting to get married, and he mentioned something about changing my name. And I was a bit taken aback because I was like, well, why would I do that? And he said, well, I'm not very traditional in many things, but this is one area I am. And then I was like, again, have you met me? And when I explained why, I was like, well, when I'm born, my mother has carried me for 9 months. She's nurtured me. I've gotten, you know, everything I need in order to develop and grow from her. I'm named for my father.
Yeah.
And when I get married, I'm now expected to be named for my husband. I'm like, at what point do I get my identity and get to keep it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And side note, this was also the same person that if I didn't do things their way, the military way, it was deemed as Hannah's way, which was a nice little patronizing, you know, pat on the head of, oh, sweetie, you tried.
And one day you'll be a real life grown adult human. And surprisingly, it didn't work out. That was a shock to all of us. But yeah, it's really interesting that there are a lot of those, I guess, hidden rules and hidden expectations that vary based on the society that you're in. But it's almost like, when you question that, that comes back to that you're being rigid in your thinking. You know, you're being unwilling to follow it, as opposed to actually, I'm just questioning to understand. If it makes sense, I'll be the first one to jump in line. But it's actually, if it doesn't make sense, isn't there an opportunity to pause and evaluate?
Yeah, because if a rule makes sense, we will follow it to the end of days. We will make sure other people follow it too.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't make sense, then we don't bother with it because no one's been able to explain why.
Yeah.
And I think that can be confusing from an outside perspective because you seem to follow some rules, but not all. And there's not necessarily a surface level rhyme or reason as to why.
Yeah.
But then when you consider the fact that we don't take things as read, we don't go with the flow, and we don't conform generally without a reason. And we're rigid literally translates to, well, yeah, you're not compliant, you're not passive, and you don't take things on face value. And I think that there's something in there too, which is, I've told you this thing that I believe to be correct, but you're questioning it, and it makes me feel wrong.
Yes. And it's actually, there's no necessarily judgment about you as a person. It's actually just more about, I'm questioning the object. Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that when we're needed, when we're wanted, when our superpowers, so to speak, and I know a lot of people don't like the term superpower, but I like to think that everybody, regardless of neurotypical, neurodiverse, everybody has a superpower. So it's not just a pathologization again. But when our superpower is needed, when it's wanted, it's called upon. But nobody wants it when it's inconvenient for them.
Yeah. And I love how you say it's like with, I view the same thing. It's not, I'm not sort of, superpower and glossing over the fact that there's some stuff that's really hard. There are things that are easy for our brains, the strengths, the tips, the stars, and we talked about starry profiles before. And there's stuff as well that's harder, and there's stuff that's difficult. But one of the biggest strengths we have is that ability to think creatively, to solve problems, to see patterns, all of those type of things. That's really common across a range of different neurotypes. And it's often why we get employed for certain jobs and, all of those type of things as well. But I love that when you say it's when it's convenient, use it only when it's convenient. And actually it's not something I can switch off. Sorry. I can't just not be good at that today.
Can you just go over there away?
Be slightly less awesome today. Thanks, Freya.
But the irony, of course, the irony of all of this, and this is what, when I said before the double standard has entered the chat, is we're called rigid because we're not following a prescribed method. It's a double standard because the same person who's calling us rigid is essentially saying, unless you do things my way, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to conform to something else. I'm not going to be flexible. But you're not being flexible enough for me. You're not changing me. It's like being called lazy, right? It just means you're not doing things in the time frame that I need you to. And often when the names come our way, it's a projection of something. It's covering an insecurity, or there's a perception that people are doing things a certain way because we are trying to be difficult. And the irony is, of course, by not having flexible thinking on both sides, then both people in that situation are saying, my way is correct. No, my way is correct. We're both rigid. We are both in the same boat, sitting at the opposite ends, refusing to row or rowing in the opposite direction because we think our course is much better. And the irony and the double standard and the fact that that's just not visible it always gets my goat, really.
I love it. And it's been such a good summary of all the different ways in which that hypocrisy exists around rigidity and that label and how it's applied and selectively and unfairly for a long period of time. So, I love that. And if you've been called rigid, inflexible, pig-headed, stubborn, difficult, steamroller, that's my one. We'd love to hear from you. Pop it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And until then, stay spicy.
Stay spicy.
You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast with Hanna and Freya, besties, brains, and more. If you've enjoyed listening, follow us on YouTube or your favourite podcast app and share it with someone else who knows the sting of a sticky label.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay spicy, stay wonderful.